Hi, everybody. Hope everyone is doing the best they can in their own lives and thinking of those who are not doing very well and wishing them well. We have a question here from Rosemary Menard in Toronto. And it's quite a long one, but it's quite an interesting one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell a story about somebody because Rosemary mentions a concern about a story that I told about a chap in India that was an alcoholic, actually. And he was drinking quite a lot. He was pretty well a person who would drink and then drop and then wake up and then go on and do some more drinking. So there was a chap who was actually attempting to, he was quite, could I say, energetically able, one could say. And he thought that helping this chap out might be a good thing. The dilemma was that he wanted everybody to know that he was helping this person out. So it was a major difficulty. So he and his personality was focused on himself. As well, you could say at least a little bit, it was focused on trying to help somebody else. Quite a dilemma, actually. So he transmitted energy because he could into this chap with the idea of that transmission being something that would be really helpful, but everyone would know him as the person who helped that person. It's a dilemma. What actually occurred was that in a kind of a way, it made the person drink more because the focus was on an intensity that was based on, let's say, the personality of one person personalizing and engaging and not letting energy operate through them, but garnering energy and transmitting it to this other person. Now, you got to remember, this person was not an average person that was transmitting. He was already at a particular stage where still the personality was a strong feature, but he was trying to be a better guru than other people. See, this is where the dilemma was. So the intensity of his version of engagement increased whatever was in the other person, and in a way that was not involved with the purpose that was respectful and trying to really be helpful, but more focused on will and power. This is a dilemma. This particular version, if you really think of it, was nothing that this guy did really wrong, the guru. But in a kind of a way, it was done out of ignorance rather than ignorance, meaning not knowing and not understanding, but at the same time, out of wanting to be more important than the other gurus that were around him, that mixed with him. And so you can see the complication of this particular kind of thing. So what happened was that the individual drank too much, went into a stupor, and never recovered. You could easily say that it was, his fault for doing that. You could say that. And maybe partly it was. But at the same time, the individual that we're talking about was not able to consider the possibility or allow the possibility of him not drinking, because he was focused pretty strongly on that particular way of living. So Rosemary has a number of questions based on not the same principle, but a similar kind of thing. So I'm going to read, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. The fifth one we just talked about. And that was, she said, "I'm nervous about the story you told at the seminar about the person whose intentions were to help the man, not necessarily true, to help himself, with the drinking problem, but he ended up making him worse and he died." Misunderstanding of the story, but nonetheless, a good thing to think about. So, that was the last paragraph. First paragraph was, "When I have asked for help for myself and others using the life map in the most gentle and balanced way possible. Keep in mind here that in that first part here, you're still talking about the personality. In my mind, I think that field of force, consciousness, will be helpful and not make an issue worse." Listen to that first paragraph, because Rosemary is thinking that field of force or consciousness is not coming from her, but she is asking for help for others and herself related to the higher state doing the work, not her doing the work. This is the difference between the story and this first paragraph. If that higher state, if you're able to notice that higher state is operating through you, and sometimes you're not, what we naturally do is engage with our personalities. And one could say that our personalities really don't know where we need the help. Initially, at least. Later on, there's little pieces and parts where you can actually see where you might need the help. But the personality would not want you to see it. Now, whoa, just a minute now. I just made a statement here. What I'm saying is our personalities are systems cultivated, developed, reflexive in nature, because we've used the same kind of system for a long period of time, it becomes almost automatic. That's one complexity of our personality. It aligns with an image construct, meaning you see the personality as you see it based on an image that you have known or unknown attempted to cultivate. This is how all of us are. We don't think of ourselves as normal human beings and a person engaging with the world and doing whatever we do. Mind you, we might think of ourselves that way, but there are images that we present to the world and to others individually that we would like them to see us as. This is really important. That image process is the thing that we maintain. As a conscious being, we also can begin to see that image that we have constructed and protect. This is really key. We protect the image construct, and we can cultivate that to be anything. Unfortunately, most often we cannot see the reality of those images, but we can protect them reflexively, almost nonchalantly, almost in a way that we would never consider a form of protection. We are engaging with them, and they are close to us. I keep saying, these are the things that we love. You love you as the image that you construct. Sometimes also, I've said, the dilemma is you would rather be the image that you construct than to adjust the image. Therefore, you prefer to maintain the images the way they were and are for a purpose that makes you feel comfortable in your own skin because you're used to being in that place. Any threat to that increases the use of the images that you are a part of and that you cannot see and dare not see. Because if you do, you bring in a critical aspect of you, or a self-protective aspect of you, that will blind you to not being able to understand how you function. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that's the method we use to help ourselves to maintain those images. Now, I know some of you have found this out, and it's disturbing, meaning, in a kind of a way, you can bring up the big guns and you can say, well, I don't know who I am then. If you say that, you're lying to yourself. You do know. It's just that you don't want to know. That's the critical part. Truth is, it's fully known how you are within a universal, pervasive engagement with how one functions here relative to this species. That's a universal aspect. One could say, well, unfortunately, or fortunately, at this stage in our development, we can't see the universal aspect. We see very clearly our perspective, our engagement with we can allow ourselves to see, with whatever we can allow ourselves to see. We see that in a very respectful, self-protective manner. And in that manner, there's a resolution. Slow and easy. Slow and easy. If you want to see how a human being on these planes operate, our easiest method is to watch other people do their thing. I'm getting to it, Rosemary. Do their thing. In seeing that, you begin to understand that you do things similar to them. Now, you could say in a much smaller way, though, or in a way that is not as hard on us, or people, or themselves, whatever. There is in that particular place, there's a relationship that occurs with everybody. Now you're looking at other people. They may be more intense, softer, slyer, unknowingly reflexive, don't even see it themselves. You cannot assume that other people see how they function. That's an assumption that is not real, necessarily. Could it be? Yes, it could be to some degree, but you don't see how you function. So, that allows them not to see how they function. We are a mix of 8 billion plus people. And if you think that's weird, you have the ingredients of past centuries and how that works out in a large constructed system called a species. We look at that, and there's a great fear that if everyone understood the history of humanity, historically speaking, looking at the feature people that we engage with, we would be shocked to find out that we like to align with winners. But that doesn't mean there's winning going on. Our alignment is not with growing. It's with being recognized as something valuable. This is a dilemma. So personalization is a very big thing. But it's also a big thing in what you and I and everyone else contribute to the whole. Now that's fascinating. Wow. You know, even our features that are not extra special, we contribute to the whole. Some of the ones that we think are extra special contribute to the whole. And there's a grouping throughout the world of people who believe one way, that one feature is extra special, but there's a whole bunch of other folks that don't necessarily agree with that feature. This goes on and on. Huge groupings. So the issue in there is, if you shift one grouping in you and don't tell anybody about it, the shift inside of you is engaged with everyone who acts a little bit like you. And it shifts that grouping. Doesn't matter if it's millions or billions. Now, we have some dilemmas in the whole register of humanity's engagement with life. And I'm not talking about negative ones only. I'm talking about positive ones. Because people believe certain things are very positive, and there's a groupings of people who don't necessarily agree with them. They must be wrong if you are right. Not necessarily. There's no communication in that. There's no discussion. There's no engagement. There's judgment, and it's quick. And that is a mainstay in our world. Take a look at our world at any age and see what we like, we have liked, what we lean towards. Not always comfortable. So we're talking here about personality rendering of how things are without knowing how things are. So in this particular story, you have an individual who had capacity internally. They weren't a lightweight. They were an aspiring guru who wanted people to follow them. That's scary business. So, in a kind of a way, there's an innocence in that. Let's think about this. He really didn't know what he was doing, but believed he did. Have you ever been in a position of thinking you know what you're doing and you really don't? Think about that. No negation in this story. At a higher state, one might see that he was doing the only thing he could that aligned with belief systems that you already believe in. Meaning, someone who is really, really able in some way is exceedingly important. That's the nature of how we do things here. It's not necessarily a relationship with higher states, movement towards helping you to become synthesized into a similarity of how it works. Now, I know what I'm doing here is a difficult thing because we even have a hard time even considering the possibility that higher states even exist on these planes because of our cycles of engagement with what we call it. There's a rendering of what we call higher states all across the planet. And everyone who has a different rendering in terms of naming even believes that they have the right name. I'm grateful that most don't. I should say all don't, but in other words, what I'm just said there is that a name that you name brings forth energy that exposes everything that there is to know in one shot in your mind and emotions. You perceive all emotion. You perceive all that is there, not what you think is there, because that's your rendering. And can our bodies handle this? Personally, I don't think so. Can our minds handle it? No, I don't think so. Can our emotions deal with the fact that we would know everything about our insinuations, our engagements, our way of seeing not only others but ourselves in one shot? No, we can't. From my perspective, you may have a different opinion. That's allowed. As a matter of fact, what we end up doing is having different opinions because it conserves our relationship with the idealizations, the images that we already have within ourselves about what we have to be liked by other people. That's pretty strange stuff sometimes, but fascinating. So one of the things that I think is really important, and I should apologize for that, I think I should follow Rosemary's line of thinking rather than mine. Otherwise, you're not going to know what her questions were, and they're more interesting than maybe some of my answers. So having said that, and she just talked about, in my mind, I think that the field of force consciousness will be helpful, not make an issue worse. According to Rosemary. I think according to me, too. That's certainly my hope. I would align with her thought on that. Here we go. Having said that, now, here's a thinking process. And I want to show where some of it I would really think might be helpful, some of it may not be. My understanding is that consciousness wants the change to come from within us so that we choose the change, and that it will help us by showing us what we are doing more until we desire that change. There's a little bit of truth in that one, but here's another way to look at it. Just another way to look at it. This is complicated because there's the difference between seeing something from a different perspective than your personality can, and seeing it from a personality's point of view. And I mean any one of us, all across the planet. And already the invigoration is getting stronger because we know what we know and we know what must be really true. We don't. But this is complicated because we're complicated. Marlene picks up her telephone. Her telephone. I say, what the heck am I going to say next? We both do this in reflex to what we're engaging with. This is a very, very difficult system. This is very hard to understand. Because we understand it really well. If we do, there's not very much emphasis on our doing, our behavior. More emphasis on our observing it and seeing it for what it is. And it is not bad or good. It's just us following the line of humanity, doing its thing individually, so that each individual is comforted by how they function. Doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean it's right, doesn't even mean it's wrong. It's just how we do it. That makes it very annoying, because that doesn't validate our images. So having said that, my understanding is that consciousness wants the change to come from within us so that we choose the change. Here's the difference. It wants us to become more aware of how we function. And within us, innately almost, when we see something that even we wouldn't agree with within ourselves, we are more vulnerable than we were 1 second before. That vulnerability takes precedence over everything. And immediately we begin to protect ourselves from that vulnerability to the point where we can almost forget what we saw and engage only with validating our form, the thing that we did. We have forgotten. It's out of our understanding, out of our emotional way to behave. This is weird, but this is what we do. I find that fascinating. And in a kind of a way, if you can even just see that a little bit, it's encouraging in the seeing, not in the changing yet, in the seeing. It's as if we're learning how to understand ourselves without beating ourselves up and without making us feel really terrific and wonderful and we're a great person because we can understand something we do, even if we still do it. Consideration, compassion, caring for others takes a while to understand with respect to ourselves. Still not putting us down or beating us up, but pulling back from beating others up. This is very difficult for us because we know what we know. Now, in this case, you don't choose to change. This is scary. Change seems to come out of our seeing something we didn't know was there. And then we see it more often in ourselves, and slowly we can slow it down. But don't forget, it's been part of our enigmatic way of engaging with life. It's part of what we did, part of what we do. It even sneaks in some other place. It's as if we are learning about the great capacity that we have, which is secret from us. There's no negation in this. So, and we are tricky because we don't want to see that stuff because it has been something that has been really helpful so that we kind of win something more often when we don't see it. We just do it. And it will help us by showing us what we are doing more. That, in a way, makes sense. Because inadvertently, you happen to notice something. You don't realize that you've been helped to notice it. You think you personally are the noticer, and it's you that figured it out. And it can be. But it's often not. This is the subtlety of higher state interaction. Once again, if you believe in such a thing. So now I'm considering that the life map may not be appropriate for those who are unconscious or those that are not trying to become conscious with awareness. Interesting thought. As they will not be able or want to see what they are doing and will do something that is unhelpful to themselves or to others to a greater extent. Think about that for a second. She's wondering here with this life map. is helpful, and I'm going to add this, if you do this life map, let me see if I can zap this person. Zap. And maybe that'll be helpful to them. This is what that guru did. Not negative, just this is what he thought might be helpful. He had a lot of intensity, and it just increased the intensity of the individual that was there. Here's another way to think of it, because it's part of this whole thing. If you do the life map, first of all, turn your hands on, right? Just think of this. Then life map comes like this. And you remember the story about doing the landscapes around everybody? The landscape is your life. And you're asking for help for that zone, 19 whatever, and because, maybe you could have done something different there. But you really couldn't, because, well, that's the way things were at that time for you. And so you did the best you could, and that best you could. Right now, you look back and you don't like it as much. So you create that, you stimulate those hands, you create a life map, you point it there, and then you ignore them. Everybody hear that? You ignore them. Now you're talking to the highest state. Look, I've got no clue what to do here. You can copy those words down, but you can use your own words. I have no clue what I'm doing here, but I know this particular area still affects me now, because the landscape around me that goes back from now to the time I was born, and I told people I did this on brown paper at one point. Just what I was trying to figure out for myself back in the early 70s. Trying to figure this thing out here. And so anyway, you're talking to this higher state through prayer or whatever, which way. My rendition was normally, look, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. All I know is that when I do this thing, my hands come on really strong. And I'm assuming that they come on at different levels, and I don't want them operating at this close level, because that's part of me. This emotional level, because that's part of me. This so-called mental level, I figured it out, and I know it. And I don't want that. I don't want that. Something beyond that might be helpful in a way that would be helpful for me, or if I'm doing it with somebody else, something that might be helpful only to them, not the way I'm thinking. So I dreamed up this thing that I did. And that was, please give me a hand with this in a gentle, balanced, and appropriate a manner as possible for them or for me in my particular inner growth, spiritual growth. And but through your knowing, not mine. Which I'm really talking to myself as well as that interaction, because I'm saying, look, I don't want to interfere with this. All I want to do is engage with it from this distance through time in a way that might be helpful, but I don't know how to do that, so look at, give me a hand with this. So I would recognize my hands came on even more, and then I'd ignore me, stay away from that, and I do that for a minute or two, and then close it down. Well, what I did, I draw a symbol of some kind, that because I had heard that it's like ending a letter. Dear so-and-so, yours truly, Affectionately, Ron. So it was a letter to it, You can think that that's weird or not. Don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Don't care at all. I know that was helpful to me. But you don't have to do it my way. You can do it whatever you want to do, because I know it's very difficult to come up with something that relates to somebody else, and you can't call it yours then. Nonsense. That's really not true. But why would you call it yours? This is something that might help, might be a lot better. We use words and we use our focus. Do your best not to use your focus. In other words, if you're asking for help for someone, talk to something higher than you. Not your version of a higher state that only thinks that you're the greater one, or that you're the meanie one, the little tiniest one, and you're not worthy of something. That's nonsense. But it gives you a clue as to how slippery we are in our personality states. We'll decide. Well, do what you do. But this is a story that Rosemary brought up, and a good one, related to that particular place, because that timing, and this timing is good. I'll tell you why it's good. Because we're growing little at a time, and all of you listening, or will listen, because many of you will, you are growing. What you personalize touches stronger than what it could before. What you non-personalize, but it's not non-loving or not caring or compassion. Compassion comes in. You don't create compassion, but you can create a kind of feeling that you relate to as you are very compassionate. That's a dialogue with you. And you can assert that dialogue to others so that you feel good about yourself because you're telling them how good you are. It's not what you're trying to do. And it's really hard not to do that, because our world is framed by that kind of engagement with others that validates your vulnerability in the opposite direction. In other words, your self-protection. So this is important. If we're trying to be helpful to ourselves, is it best just to work with ourselves? Okay. Our own issues and the energy we perceive within us, rather than to use the life map to ask for help for others that we see or know having a difficult time. Look, if you follow the idea that I gave you, I think it can be very helpful to others, because I trust that consciousness. Because it seems to have been, it's given me enough reassurance in a kind of a funny way. If you focus on yourself as the doer, I think I would rather not have you focusing on me to help me. Not because you're bad, but because you will transmit your version of how you are into me, and I've got enough trouble dealing with me. No offense. I'm a human being like the rest of us. But if you ask for help for somebody, in a way that is gentle, balanced, and appropriate for them, and you don't know what that is, if you can keep that in the back of your mind, then you're attempting at least to be okay with what's happening. I've been involved in the 70s with a number of different kinds of ways of doing healing. I'm not putting any of them down. I'm just saying, for me, my preference is that link up is not personalized. Fair enough? And maybe that's a good answer to the question there. Rosemary says, I don't want people to have a harder life than they already have. I would agree with that. Or to have a problem accelerated that they are not able to change and don't want to change. We all agree on that one. At least, hopefully, we all agree with that one. I remember once you said that we weren't here. If we weren't here, we wouldn't care what other people did. I changed the language. Other people did. Therefore, all reactions are about us. Every reaction we have is related to either us or the impact of others on us. Therefore, we react relative to them. Now, there's three things there. I don't know whether, look, other people have an impact on you. There's no question about that. Your reaction to them validates you. That's the only person that validates. Good, bad, or indifferent, you're validating you. Has to be clarity with that. We're affected by our culture. We're affected by the world's cultures. And you can see that if you look at science, if you look at philosophical background things, history. We steal from other people to make sense of something else. Let's say we borrow, or we shift and change something. I don't have a problem with that, personally. I think everything in the world that can be constructive and positive for us individually and all of us, not only groupings, should be honestly used to help everyone grow. But that's not how it works in our world just yet. Any time that you can be helpful to that is a positive thing, from my point of view. But our trigger mechanisms are profoundly strong, and they are, in fact, often engaged based on small things, like that person wears glasses, that person walks this way, they're not very beautiful, and those are really small things. The racial orientations, all nonsense. But not nonsense to everybody. But certainly nonsense to anyone who's thinking beyond the ideas that are limiting. And we all have those limiting ideas. Find them in yourself. Allow them to be noticed by you, so you're not tricking yourself and say you don't have them. Notice them, because they're out there and most often in there. And there are many others, religious, philosophical backgrounds, cultural base, all kinds of things. That'll keep us busy for the next 20,000 years, maybe more. Hopefully not. Okay. The reactions, all these reactions, they're all complicated. You will have certain reactions. Others will have them relating to you. Be curious about them. Most times reactions are based on upbringing or what kind of sense you've made of how you should be based on your past engagements with life. You don't want to see them because you don't want to allow yourself to be okay and still be okay with change. This is hard for all of us. Hard for us to say these words. Don't like how they function. Don't want to be around them. Maybe that's true. But remember, how you function isn't always stellar. That's true. So the biggest way to get around that is to get a bunch of people that you like, and then everyone agree that it's okay to be like this or that or this or that. That's what this world tends to do. You can watch it. It's out there and it's clear. So try to understand something beyond your limits and be okay with you. But also recognize where you're not only part of the solution. When I asked you, okay, where did we go here? Sorry about that. Reactions are about us. It's true. This makes sense. However, are we to stop caring about people? Absolutely not. Care about them and care about you. But recognize how you care and why you care. And be okay with that. Let your mind cultivate an understanding beyond a reflex, if you can. Often results in transmitting ourselves and assessments into situations. Of course, you transmit all the time, no matter what you feel, no matter what you see, no matter how you are. You're transmitting all the time. The problem is our personalities want to be validated for the transmissions that we express. And if you saw yourself acting the way you did, you would not like it. All the time. Because you don't like other people doing that. Just an idea. You do you. Remember, watch where you protect. Where you look for validation. Where you try to understand it and where you won't try to understand it. It just is helpful to you. You doing you. Growing through you. Okay. Do we pray for people and trust that consciousness will help them? Good question. I just said just about that. Or ask for help for them, recognizing that you don't know how to do that. Except you do, but you don't know how to pull back on your personality and how it thinks they would be helped. Just saying. Okay, makes sense. Or isn't it the idea that we don't know what is needed, we just want helpful change. Yeah, chances are that's what we want, something like that. So how do we make this make sense? We don't. We can't. But little by little, it starts to make better sense. It's difficult. If you have different real assertions from your perspective, it's difficult to change those assertions because they're usually related directly to validating your personalization. This shouldn't be like this, you shouldn't be like that. I totally agree with whatever it was. I don't know. But what you're really doing is validating you because that's your training. So always remember, if you weren't validated enough, chances are you would try to validate yourself. I wish it was the other way. If you weren't loved enough, you would attempt to love everybody. It doesn't always work that way. You tend to be the person who puts others in a position that you were in. This is consistent in most therapy. You can truly see it a mile away. Doesn't mean the person's bad. Just doesn't mean that they're seeing. They can't yet. Maybe they will. That's not your responsibility. It's their engagement with life. And none of us get this one perfect. Well, we go ahead and we do things. So how do we know what makes sense? We don't know. But we still do us as we believe we need to be. Eventually, you try to at least attempt to figure it out. But only little pieces at a time can really work. Little pieces where you catch something. Say, okay, I think I've got that. I'm going to do it again, but I think I've seen that. And continue on to see it the best you can. Be helpful. Be kind. And that not only to you, but to others as well. It's not easy. The kindness puts you in a position to attempt to try and understand why that other person does what they do. And that's really difficult for us because we've already, internally or externally, made up our mind that that's not the right thing that they should be doing. I'm not saying understanding solves all problems, because it doesn't. What I am saying is understanding is a movement towards compassion and helping us to at least begin to be okay with considering something beyond what we already have constructed as the only way to be. Very heavy, but very apropos. Thanks for the question. We need some more questions. By the way, we're getting right to the edge of next Thursday. I might have one, I'm not sure. I'll have to see whether I already did talk about this one. And nonetheless, I wish everybody the very, very best. And now we're going to just meditate. Oh, the other thing I might say is in the fall, we used to meditate the third Sunday of the month. And in the fall, in September, I'd like to do that same thing, begin to do that same thing again. every Sunday, every third Sunday of the month. Meditate, and normally we wait till about, I think it was 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock Eastern.
8 o'clock Eastern time, which meant it would be 4 o'clock in Vancouver, for example.
5 o'clock.
Did I get that right? 5 o'clock. 3 hours and 2 hours. And then in the East, it would be at 9 o'clock at night. So like your thoughts on that.
Could do it at 7.
I definitely miss it. And we're open to doing it at 7 as well. Not as well. We're open as well to do it at 7. Please take care of yourselves. I'll bring you out if you are meditating with us. And we'll start in a couple of minutes since we get some music on.
रत्नैः कल्पितमासनं हिमजलैः स्नानं च दिव्याम्बरम् नानारत्नविभूषितं मृगमदामोदाङ्कितं चन्दनम् जातिचम्पकबिल्वपत्ररचितं पुष्पं च धूपं तथा दीपं देवदयानिधे पशुपते हृत्कल्पितं गृह्यताम् सौवर्णेन नवरत्नखण्डरचिते पात्रे घृतं पायसम् भक्ष्यं पञ्चविधं पयोदधियुतं रम्भाफलं पानकम् शाकानां यतं जलं रुचिकरं कर्पूरखण्डोज्ज्वलम् ताम्बूलं मनसा मया विरचितं भक्त्या प्रभो स्वीकुरु छत्रं चामरयोर्युगं व्यजनकं चादर्शकं निर्मलम् वीणाभैरिमृदङ्गकोहलकला गीतं च नृत्यं तथा साष्टाङ्गं प्रणतिः स्तुतिर्बहुविधा एतत्समस्तं मया सङ्कल्पेन समर्पितं तव विभो पूजां ग्रहाण प्रभो आत्मा त्वं गिरिजामते सहचरा पूजा ते विषयोपभोगरचना निद्रा समाधिस्थितिः सञ्चारः पदयोः प्रदक्षिणविधि स्तोत्राणि सर्वा गिरो यत् कर्म करोमि तत् अखिलम् शम्भो तवाराधनम् करचरणकृतं वा कायजं कर्मजं वा श्रवणनयनजं वा मानसं वा पराधम् विहितमविहितं वा सर्वमेतच्छमस्व जय जय करुणाब्धे श्री महादेव शम्भो न तातो न माता न बन्धुर्न दाता न पुत्रो न पुत्री न भृत्यो न भर्ता न जाया न वेद्या न वृत्तिर्ममैव गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि भवाब्धावपारे महादुःखभीरो प्रपात प्रकामी प्रलोभी प्रमत्ता कुसंसारपाश प्रबद्धः सदाहम् गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं भवानी न जानामि दानं न च ध्यानयोगम् न जानामि तन्त्रं न च स्तोत्रमन्त्रम् न जानामि पूजां न च न्यासयोगम् गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी न जानामि पुण्यं न जानामि तीर्थम् न जानामि मुक्तिं लयं वा कदाचित् न जानामि भक्तिं व्रतं वापि माता गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी कुकर्मी कुसङ्गी कुबुद्धि कुदास कुलाचारहीन कदाचारलीन कुदृष्टि कुवाक्य प्रबन्ध सदाहम् गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी प्रजेशं रमेशं महेशं सुरेशं दिनेशं निशीथेश्वरं वा कदाचित् न जानामि चान्यत् सदाहं शरण्ये गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी विवादे विषादे प्रमादे प्रवासे जले चानले पर्वते शत्रुमध्ये गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी अनाथो दरिद्रो जरारोगयुक्तो महाक्षीणदीन सदा जाड्यवक्त्रा विपत्तौ प्रविष्ट प्रणष्ट सदाहम् गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिव ब्रह्मोऽहं ब्रह्मोऽहं ब्रह्मस्वरूपोऽहं चिदोऽहं चिदोऽहं सच्चिदानन्दोऽहं चिदोऽहं चिदोऽहं सच्चिदानन्दोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कार चित्तानि नाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायु न वा सप्तधातु न वा पञ्चकोश चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मे द्वेषरागो न मे लोभमोहो मदोर्नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मृत्युर्न शङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धुर्न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभुत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न च सङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेया चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं 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 शिवोऽहम् ब्रह्ममुरारिसुरार्चितलिङ्गम् निर्मलभासितशोभितलिङ्गम् जन्मजदुःखविनाशकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। देवमुनि प्रवरार्चितलिङ्गम् कामदहन करुणाकरलिङ्गम् रावणदर्पविनाशनलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। सर्वसुगन्धिसुलेपितलिङ्गम् बुद्धिविवर्धनकारणलिङ्गम् सिद्धसुरासुरवन्दितलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। कनकमहामणिभूषितलिङ्गम् फणिपतिवेष्टितशोभितलिङ्गम् दक्षसुयज्ञविनाशकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। कुङ्कुमचन्दनलेपितलिङ्गम् पङ्कजहारसुशोभितलिङ्गम् सञ्चितपापविनाशकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। देवगणार्चितसेवितलिङ्गम् भावैर्भक्तिभिरेव च लिङ्गम् दिनकरकोटिप्रभाकरलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। अष्टदलोपरिवेष्टितलिङ्गम् सर्वसमोद्भवकारणलिङ्गम् अष्टदरिद्रविनाशकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। सुरगुरुसुरवरपूजितलिङ्गम् सुरवनपुष्पसदार्चितलिङ्गम् परमपदं परमात्मकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्
So now we just begin to do the balancing and grounding. And just hold this one thought that each and every one of us attempts to do what we can in any given moment. And sometimes we can learn from that. And sometimes we can just learn from that. And that means positive or negative. So I wish you well, everybody. Please take care. Bye for now.